One on land tax. The government's tax discussion paper, Rethink, modelled a number of different taxes, and this modelling found that land tax has the lowest marginal excess burden, in fact a negative excess burden. Can you explain what that means? Or explain why that's the case?
And just specifying that's a state tax, of course.
It's a state tax.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Well, it's what you said, Senator. It's a state tax, as the Minister said, and it's one when you put them up against other state taxes, it's certainly more efficient.
More efficient?
It's more efficient,
yeah.
And there are obviously significant issues for state governments when they set land taxes. But it's really something Mr Heffernan spends a lot of his life thinking about.
Okay. I'd be interested in whether there was a view, perhaps I should ask him on whether it
is up next.
Improves efficiency or productivity in the economy, whether the Treasury has a view on that.
Oh, well, if a tax is more efficient
yeah.
and effective, other things equal, it should help.
Okay. I'll take that as positive. Lastly, in terms of housing shortage and recent reports suggesting rental yields are near record lows since just before the GFC, there's actually been a Senate inquiry into home ownership, and it came to light that Treasury hasn't done a state-by-state analysis of physical housing supply. Is that correct?
I'm looking to my colleagues. We have there's a group on affordable housing, but that's more about social housing. But Nigel, are you aware of?
So, Senator, are you talking about the housing supply?
Yes.
Body, which I think no longer exists. I don't think that exists anymore.
No. Okay. So, is there any what kind of?
So when we're looking,
how would you?
So Senator, if I can just add,
yeah.
When we're looking to forecast what's happening in the housing market, we look at different market segments.
That was my next question. Yeah. Okay. And is there any indications there that there is a housing shortage supply? Would you agree with that, with other reports? Because I'm interested from that as to why rents are not increasing at the same rate as housing prices if we've got a shortage.
I think, so in the September quarter, which is the most recent data, commencements were at a record level, and all the indicators are there's a solid pipeline of projects. One of the differences in this housing cycle compared with past housing cycles is the importance of apartments in the housing cycle, and they tend to have for obvious reasons, they have a longer lead time between, developers starting their process and actually getting the apartments available for occupancy, and so that we've seen this cycle the supply response has been a bit slower than previous cycles. It's largely as a result of that. So we are seeing quite a pipeline.
Okay, I saw you not shaking your head there, Mr. Fraser. Do you agree that it is a bit anomalous that rents aren't increasing at similar rates to
I was being whimsical, to be honest. When Mr. Ray mentioned the apartments, you see in Melbourne, I think there's been a massive increase in the number of apartments in the Docklands and other areas. The rents, yes, do look very low. I don't know the answer, but it does suggest there's a good supply of rental apartments. I should mention the Harper report. Harper reform measures include trying to increase the supply of land and infrastructure to address housing shortages, which I think certainly do exist, particularly for first home buyers, and that's very much a focus of some of the discussions in the KIFA meeting.
Well, just last question to finish up this. Is there any evidence from work that's been done or that you've seen across the board as to whether negative gearing has an impact on availability of rents, and a change in policy, how that would impact rents or rental yields? It's always rolled out by the real estate industry in discussions on this topic. But I'm wondering where we go to get that kind of analysis and data.
I'm testing my memory, and I'm looking. Nigel's too young, but when the negative gearing was wound back in the 80s,
Yep.
the reason why it had been brought in, one of the reasons had been to increase the supply of rental housing. And I think I was overseas at the time. I think the evidence was such.
That was brought back in.
Yeah, and so it was brought back in.
Sorry, so that's why it was brought back in to increase the... So my understanding was that maybe it was Sydney and Perth, there was some structural shortages at the time which led to higher...
some underlying... I think you're correct, Senator.
In any market, there are always a number of, obviously influences that play out at any one point in time. But obviously, the judgment at the time was that in the circumstances, the effect was as has been described.
Thank you. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to some questions Senator Ludlam asked about the capital gains tax discount. You mentioned it was put in place to help capital formation, Mr. Fraser. My recollection, others might be able to help, was that it replaced what was a real basis for capital gains tax, allowing for indexation, whereas the new tax base is on nominal capital returns with a 50% discount on your marginal income tax. Is that correct? Is that recollection correct? And Mr. Fraser, you might not have been there, but can others help?
That's what my understanding is. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So if we were to remove that discount or reduce that discount, presumably some element of the nominal gain in capital values would be taxed. Is that correct?
I think we're getting close to issues that are before cabinet deliberations.
Okay. All right. Well, we've established that was the reason why it was put in place, or for the change.